Shifting to the environment, speak with Rob, an environmental lawyer, and formerly with Diener. You have spent a lot of your career protecting the environment. Can you sort of describe the changes that maybe agriculture has had on the environment in the last couple of decades?
Well, in terms of environmental regulation, it's changed a great deal over the last 20 years. And going back before my tenure with the department, environmental regulations tend to come about in one of two ways. They either respond to a bad thing that happened, or they come about because we learn more about connections between certain activities and environmental problems. And I think in agriculture, we've had a mix of both of those things. We talked a little bit earlier about the permitting program and the monitoring for swine farms. That entire program came about in response to some bad things, probably some bad actors. This was a little bit before my time with the department, but there were a couple of very large swine waste spills in the eastern part of the state. One of them was over 2 million gallons that went into the Cape Fear River Basin. And I think it's pretty clear that that particular farmer was not managing that facility appropriately. He was not representative of farmers across the state. But when you have 2 or 3 bad things happen that are very similar to each other, the pressure starts to build for some type of baseline measures to prevent it from happening again. And I think the entire much of the animal permitting program came about for that reason. The other thing that's happened is we've come to understand the connections between things more, and this is not, and nothing that I say really today is probably going to be exclusive to agriculture. We know more now generally about how contaminants get into groundwater, and that's influenced how the state manages certain types of activities, including some agricultural activities, to prevent groundwater contamination. Same thing with surface water. So we've learned a lot, and because we've learned a lot and because we've reacted to some specific bad things, the regulatory program changed a lot, and it does put more of a burden on farmers than it used to.
Are they living up to that? I mean, in your opinion, are farmers making good choices as far as protecting the environment and the things that they're putting into place?
I think generally, yes. I mean, the last 5 years that I was at the department, I think were characterized by almost total silence on swine farm issues, which I would not have believed possible 5 years before that. I mean, I think working through some of the environmental issues, and again, this is not exclusive to agriculture, goes on with any big business or industry that has an environmental footprint, and they all do. You often go through these phases where issues arise, the public's concerned, legislators are concerned, interest groups are concerned, and some degree of headbutting goes on, and you come out the other side of that with something that you hope, because of the headbutting, is a fair and balanced way to address the concerns and still allow people to do what they need to do on their farms. And I think we had largely gotten there, particularly with the large swine farms.
Now, Casey and Tommy, when it comes to protecting the environment, what kind of precautions? I mean, obviously there are things in place that you have to do, but how important is that to you all? How do you feel about that?
It's very important. As farmers, we raise our families just like all of the consumers out there. My children, my grandchildren are raised on the same farm that we raise all the livestock on. They play in the streams, they play in the fields. We drink the same well water. The last thing that I think any farmer wants to do is to contaminate his home and where he raises his family. You've all probably seen bumper stickers out there that the Farm Credit System has put out. Farmers, the first environmentalist. I think as a whole, farmers want to protect the soil, the water, the environment as much as anyone. That's how we make our livelihood. That's our living and where we raise our families. So if we don't care for it, we're the first ones that suffer. And so it's very much so that we want to care for the environment and to do everything we can to protect it.
You know, growing up on the farm, I think I learned a lot of my lessons from my dad. We had beef cattle, we had dairy cattle for a while, we had alfalfa, raised a lot of hay crops, and I'll never forget, he was the first one who told me about that as far as conserving in the environment and planting things for wildlife and not using excessive either pesticides or whatever that you don't need. And even now, to this day, he's 81 and he has his washer hooked up so the water runs off the washer to water his tomatoes. You know, but I learned that from him, and farmers care about the environment, and it has to be frustrating when there are misperceptions out there that you all don't care about what goes on. I mean, would you say that's kind of that's accurate? I mean,
that is accurate. There's a lot of misconceptions that, oh, well, you're just interested in producing animals and making money. Yes, as I referred to earlier, a profit is any business's bottom line. If there's not a profit, then why are you going to do it? Now, as farmers, there are a lot of years as farmers, we do it because we love it. It's a passion, and you know, we don't make money every year. That's just, you've probably all heard that. Farmers, you have to have one good year to carry you through the next 3 bad years. But farming is a way of life. It's the way we raise our families. But it's not that much different than any other family out there. Our children go to the same type of schools. They wear the same clothes. You know, they do the same sports, the same things. So farmers are not different than any other family. But we are very passionate about what we do, and we do care about the animals, care about the environment, and care about our neighbors. We don't want to do anything to offend our neighbors, and we try on a large farm to manage to where we can be friendly to our neighbors. Our closest neighbors to our farm is a church on one end, a daycare on the other. I can promise you today that if I would call them and have an issue, that they would be on our side. They like having us as a neighbor. They like the open space. They like seeing the animals. That we try to be that kind of neighbor. And I think as a whole, that's what most farmers are.